Hey everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another Estes Rockets build video. And I am very excited today to highlight the all-new Blue Origin New Glenn rocket. Now if you remember from the past, Estes had partnered with Blue Origin and they did the new Shepherd. They did both the Ready to Fly and the build-up kit. And now they're debuting their all-new New Glenn rocket. And I'm excited. This is a Pro Series 2 build. Once again, the box is too big to show off the whole thing on camera. So I'll kind of do a pan by here. But this is a large rocket. It's designed to fly on F-15-4 motors and can get up to 500 feet. I think once we pull the parts out and take a look, you'll realize how large this project is actually going to turn into. It is a 1/100 scale rocket. There's a good side view shot of it right there. This is also part of the Club for the Future program. We're probably going to find some paperwork inside the box on that. The back just shows what you need to launch. A little bit more about the rocket. And there's the history. You might want to read that little tidbit there. That's the history of the original Blue Origin. And yeah, here's the specifics on this particular model. It's going to be, once completed, 38 inches, so it's a little over 3 feet long. That's going to be a tall one. And it does come with the new ripstop parachute, it says. And it's got the 2.8 inch diameter body tube. Okay, so let's get into this. Now, I don't see any evidence of tape being on this box. This is probably one of the early prototype boxes, because it wasn't sealed. But let's pull parts out. Okay, you see what I mean? This is a very large body tube. And that's just the body. Of course, the nose cone's going to extend it even taller. Let's see, we got some vacuum form pieces in here. So if you've built the Saturn V, you'll be very familiar with this technique of wrapping and building without plastic. Here are the instructions. Looks like decals, Kevlar, shock cord. Looks like the fins are in there. We'll open this bag up when we do our inventory. And let's see what else we got. Some body tubes here. We got some. Looks like got some boosters. Got probably the motor tube right here. Here's the nose cone. Yeah, see how much this is going to add a lot of length to the rocket. And another bag. Oh, this is a heavy bag. Oh my goodness, look how much clay that comes in this thing. Okay. I'm curious how much that is. I may put it on the scale and weigh it. This seems to be a transition of sorts. Okay. There's another little side booster tube. And I'm guessing that's it. Yep, that's it for what's in the box. All right, let me open up these individual bags, pull the instructions out, and we'll do a quick inventory before we begin the build. Okay, quick inventory here. Let's go ahead and start off with the letters are not quite in the order I would expect them to be. That starts out with letter V and then I, but these are our blow molded plastic parts. We've got the nose cone, obviously, right here. Then we've got the, oh, that's the tail cone, not the transition. There's the tail cone. Okay. Then it looks like we're going to get into the vacuum formed pieces here. So it's got a forward control surface. There should be 4 of these guys. Let me, I didn't cut this bag open, but let's go ahead and get into it and pull them out and see if we do in fact have, let's see. Am I looking at the right part? I think I am. Oh, they're hiding under here. Okay, there's 2, 3, and 4. Okay, these are very thin, very, very thin. I wonder if they're going to support those inside somehow. But so we got the 4 forward control surfaces. We've got 2 fin strakes. Should be these guys right here. Are there 2 of them? Yes. Okay, we got the 2 fin strakes. We've got the second stage wrap. Yes, this is already bringing back memories of my Saturn V build. Okay, so that's all there. Then I'm just going to go ahead and jump into here, the tunnel, letter J, because that's the rest of the vacuum form pieces. And there's just one of these. Okay. So we'll get that bag out of the way. All right, let's get back up into the inventory here. We've got a forward centering ring with a little notch cut out. That's going to be this guy right here in front. We've got, let's see, we got the display nozzle. Okay, this is all display stuff here. We got the display base right here, along with 7 nozzles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. And then the retainer cap is here also, so we're done with the retainer set. So that bag is done. All right, what else we got? We got BT20 plugs. There'll be 2 of them. Yep, there they are. Right there, the 2 plugs. We've got 4 plywood fins. They're right there. Look to be probably 1/8 inch thick. Maybe 3/32. I believe. No, that's not it. Let's see, what else we got out of this bag? We've got 2 lower centering rings, and we do have the larger rings that have maybe for the side boosters. I'm not sure, but they do have holes cut out of them for them. All right, then we've got a motor tube, letter A right here. Then we've got the 2 6-inch paper tubes, these guys right here. And then we got the main body tube, the big boy. Couldn't miss that. If you miss it, you're blind. We've got 2 launch lugs. All that's going to be in this bag here. And there they are, 1 and 2. And then down here we've got our air mid cord. Check. It's saying that we've got 8 clay. There's a lot more than 8 squares, but there's probably 8 bags of squares. But I'm not going to open this just yet. But there is a ton of clay weight in here. What else we got with that? Shock cord. There it is, the elastic shock cord. We already saw the engine retainer set. We've got the laser cut balsa pieces. That's this little sheet right here. It's got all these little wooden details. And then we've got our ripstop parachute. That's going to be a beautiful one. The colors just already are very striking. The red, yellow, and black. That's going to be a 30-inch, so that's nice and big. And last but not least, we've got a beautiful decal set. Let me pull that out here and show that to you. Blue Origin New Glen. It's got the very familiar Blue Origin feather. All right, so that is it. We have everything that's on the inventory. Let me see what the first step's going to be here. Probably, I'm going to guess motor mount. Yep, that's usually how they start. Okay, so I'm going to clear the board. We're going to get the parts needed for this section, and we'll begin building the engine mount. Okay, the first thing we're going to be doing is working on the engine mount. And before we actually start gluing things to the mount, we need to first make marks on the engine mount tube. We need to make 3 marks. We need to make a mark working from the bottom up. We're going to make a mark at the 1/2-inch line, which is right here, and also at the 1-inch line. And our third one is going to be at the 4-inch line up. So right there. And I want to go ahead and draw the full circumference line around the tube. So what I do is I took a piece of cardstock and I'm going to wrap it with one edge completely straight. So I'm going to wrap it rather tightly. I'm going to tape it together. Okay, I'm going to rotate this up to the first line we made. And I'm just going to draw this line all the way around the tube. Just like that. Okay, we're going to go down to our next line. Do the same thing. Okay, and then down to our 4-inch line. we go. Okay, so we got full circumference lines drawn on the tube. Now, first thing we want to do is first test dry fit the rings. If they need to be sanded, you can go ahead and bore the center out a little bit with some sandpaper. However, these out of the box actually have quite a bit of play in them to begin with. So if anything, I would prefer it to be a little tighter, but that's what we got. But I'm going to use the Tight Bond Quick and Thick. This will dry a little quicker and a little thicker, which is going to help fill in that void of the gap. So that's why we're going to go with that one. You want to mount the ring just above the line. You want the line that we just made to be at the bottom end of the ring. So I'm actually going to put a seam of glue pretty much on the line and then push it through the glue and seat it as you see there. So let me slide that off. We're going to do the first line at the 1-inch position. Okay. Going to take our first ring. We're going to pass it, kind of twisting as we go, pass it through the glue just to where I can see the line on the bottom side. We're going to let that tack up just a little bit, and then we'll make it a little more precise, although it's already tacking up. I can feel it. And just kind of eyeballing it from above. You can see it is perpendicular to the tube there. Just a little tweak here and there. Okay, we're going to let this tack up and harden, and then we'll come in and do the second ring, and we'll show you how you do that. Okay, the first centering ring is hard enough to work with. It's not completely cured, obviously, but it's tacked up and stationary. I want to show you a little trick I discovered. If any of you have the Estes tube cutting guides, the BT55 just happens to be exactly 1 inch thick. So what I ended up doing was, off camera, after I glued this, just set that on the table and set your tube into that, and that makes a perfect 1 inch platform to set your first centering ring at. It keeps it at the 1 inch point, it keeps it perpendicular to the tube. So this is an ideal guide for setting that first ring, okay? So now the second ring is going to be 1/2 inch below it, right in this position here. Now I don't have anything I can use for a 1/2 inch, but if you have something that you can use to measure out 1/2 inch to sit it on, that would be ideal, but we're just gonna have to eyeball the second one. The other thing we're gonna have to be cautious of is, as we glue in the second centering ring, we are going to have to make sure that these side holes are aligned with one another. So what I do is I'm going to use my BT20 that came in the kit, and I'm going to use it as an alignment as the glue hardens up. So same thing as before, we're going to set the glue just below the line that we drew. And we are going to come back later and put in some fillets to help strengthen these, but for right now, they'll hold their own just with the glue that's underneath the wood. Okay, so take our second ring here, gonna slide it on, twist it, that's going to help spread the glue for us, and then get it right above our line. Right there, and we're going to take our BT20 tube and use this as our alignment. There it goes. Okay, now we'll just get this. Now this one's pretty easy to eyeball because the two rings are so close to each other that you can see if they're parallel to one another. So right there you can see that they are in perfect distance and perpendicular to the tube. So get that right on our line. Okay, looks good. Maybe a little adjustment there, a little tweak. It's kind of like when you're driving down the highway, you don't turn the wheel, you bump the wheel. That's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of bumping the ring to get it to the position that I want it to be perpendicular or parallel to the other tube, or to the other ring. Okay, so that looks good. So now we're just going to let that harden and tack up, and we'll come back and do some fillets and then work on the forward centering ring. Okay, the next thing we're going to do while the centering rings are still drying is we're going to go ahead and take our BT20. This is the same tube that I used to align the two centering rings, but now that they've tacked up pretty well, I was able to remove it and they stayed in their position. So now we need to take this part and cut it in half. And the instructions say, I'm going to measure it real quick. It's they are 2 3/4 of an inch, and they say to measure to the middle point, which is 1 3/8, which makes sense. 1 3/8 puts us right there, midway point. And I'm going to take my BT20 cutting guide and we're going to cut this tube in half. Let me get it right up to the mark. Actually, I think I've had better luck in the past when I have this facing this direction. It seems to hold better when I tighten it. Okay, so now I'm just gonna cinch it down tight. Yeah, we're right in position there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take a brand new razor blade and just lightly score around it. But then I actually, and a lot of people just keep doing that till it finally cuts through, but I have had a lot of luck with just puncturing the side gently, and then just slowly and methodically running this around the perimeter of the tube. And get a nice clean cut. I've had good success with that, and once again, more success. Okay, so now we'll pry these apart. And we've got our two tubes that are equal distant. Perfect. Okay, then we want to take our two little wooden plugs that were in the bag earlier, and we need to plug these ends with those wooden plugs. They're going to fit in just like that. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go get some wax paper and some glue, and we're going to glue these in. I'll show you how we do that. Okay, I have a small piece of wax paper, and what we're going to do is we're going to glue these in and then press them down on the wax paper to ensure that they are flush with the ends of the tube. So I'm going to take our quick and thick glue. I'm going to run a very small thin bead around the inside lip. Okay, we're going to take a plug, we're going to insert it, and then we're going to press it down onto the wax paper like that. Let me take make sure it's all flush, and remove it, and perfect. Nice smooth finish, nice perfect flush finish, and we'll do the same thing to this end. And in the inventory segment of this video, I referred to those long side tubes as side boosters, but in actuality, they are going to be what becomes our fin assembly, which very interesting build technique. But you'll see how that goes here in a bit. Okay, we're going to press that down. Perfect. Okay, so we're just going to let those dry and harden up, and then they will eventually get glued into the motor mount. Okay, everything's ready to go. These are dry. Before we glue these in, I want to put a fillet around this upper centering ring, only because it's going to be hard to get the fillet in once these are glued in. So let's go ahead and do that first. So let's take our Tight Bond glue. Run our fillet. And just run our finger around to smooth that in. Press it in to fill any voids in the joint. There, perfect. Okay, now I want to point out one thing to you before we proceed with these fin, I don't know what to call them, fin mount tubes or fin supporting tubes or what. The one that we use for alignment, that one came out perfect. It was, they lined straight up. It's parallel to the tube. However, when you rotate 180 degrees to this side, the holes didn't exactly line up, and there was actually a bit of a, let me show you, an angle to it, and it was not parallel to the body tube. Can you see that angle? Although this side is, this side was not. Not quite sure why that came out that way, but it did. So what I did was I had to take my Dremel and I elongated this upper hole a little bit so I could rotate the tube. You see that movement right there? So now we can get that in line with the motor tube, because that's going to give our stability and alignment for our fins ultimately. So we want to make sure that that's nice and straight. Okay, so I'm going to actually, the next step is to glue these in. I'm going to insert them slightly past. Okay, I'm having trouble finding the hole here on this one. I'm going to, come on. There we go. And I'm going to put the glue on this side and then push it through. That's the way I'm going to, and I'm actually going to rotate the tube. And we'll do one on this side. Okay, and we'll just draw that in. And run your finger around, and that's going to make it flush with the bottom ring. Just like that. Okay, and again, always, I've said this 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 more, always have paper towels at the ready. That should be the #1 thing on your workbench is paper towels. You'll, trust me, even if you think, oh, I don't need a paper towel for this step, you're going to need one at some point, and you're going to wish they were right there at the ready. So, okay, let's get this one in. This is the one that we had to elongate a little bit, so this one I'm going to have to be cognizant and pull it over to the side. Okay, press that down. Do a little bit of a twist. Okay, I want to pull it to the angle it needs to be as I make this all flush here. There we go. Wipe off the excess. Make sure we are parallel to the tube. That looks good. Okay, so now we're just going to let that sit and dry for a little bit. Okay, now that the tubes for the fin support are in and somewhat dried, I went ahead and I think, yeah, you saw me do the fillets. I also put a little bit of a fillet around these tubes as well. But now it's time to apply some glue and install our forward centering ring that has the notch in it for the shock cord. And once again, look at the excess play in this. It's very loose. Not quite sure why the tolerances were left that loose on this build, but nonetheless they are. But the glue is quick and thick, and that's what we need. That thickness will help secure it. So now we're going to, just like we've done before, we're going to bead glue on the top side of the ring. Now the location of the notch is not important, as the instructions say, but I'm going to put the notch in between the two tubes. I think that'll help when it comes time to tying our knot. Let me twist this all the way around. I think it'll help with our knot making for the shock cord. Okay, so I'm going to let that tack up a little bit and let that dry. And I won't have to show this on camera, but once it is dry, I'll go in and put fillets around on both the top and the bottom of it. And you do want to make sure you keep that notch clear though, because that's where we're going to route our shock cord eventually. So, but again, I'll do that off camera, and I think we're going to start working on the body tube next. Okay, now we're going to mark the main rocket body with the reference marks. Now this is the guide that comes in the instructions. I prefer to photocopy mine, but make sure when you do, they are 1-to-1, 100%. You don't want any scaling issues with the sizing. But so this is a direct copy out of the manual, and what you want to do is go ahead and wrap it around your body tube and line up the notch marks, both in the front and in the back, down here. And once you do, then just take a piece of masking tape and seal that down. I'm going to slide mine closer down to the bottom, and I'm also going to take an extra piece of tape and set it on half of the guide and half of the tube. That way we don't get any rotation while we're making our marks. Okay, so now we're just going to go around the entire tube and mark all the lines that we need to mark. And that should do it. Okay, and I'm going to write LL for launch lug next to this one, so we know which one it is, just for reference if we need to refer back to which line is referring to what. Okay, so we're going to remove that. Then we're going to take our fin marking, our body tube marking tool, and this is a pretty cool tool, and we're going to slip it. See the best way to do this. Let me rotate it around. Okay, I'm just going to line it up with the reference lines we just made. Okay, and we're just going to extend that line. And we'll do the same to this one. We're just going to go all the way around and extend all the lines that we have. Three more to go here. And our final one. Okay. Now I am going to, I'll do this off camera, but I'm going to have to extend these lines further up. I just don't have the length of this guide tool to do it, so I'm going to do that off camera. And then we're going to come back and prepare our wrap that's going to go up on the upper section of the body tube. So I'll probably do it off camera, but I'm just going to cut out the excess plastic around the perimeter, and then we'll talk about how we're going to glue it to the body tube. Okay, just to give you a quick update before I take it out and spray it, what I did was, as I told you, I was going to trim the plastic, which I have done, and it's going to be in this orientation here as it wraps around the tube. What I did was I laid it up against the tube flush with the top, and then I made a mark down at the bottom where the bottom is going to be, and then I drew that circumference all the way around, and then I taped it, sealing it, and from here I'm going to use some 3M high strength 90 contact adhesive. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to spray the top of the body tube, let that dry and tack up, and then I'm going to spray the back of the plastic wrap, and then once they both tack up, we'll bring them together. I'll bring it on camera, and we're going to wrap this around the tube, and we're going to locate this double set of lines. You see these two parallel lines really close. That's where we're going to be starting our adhesion, and then just wrapping it all the way around. Now, it came out a little shy of the full length. I trimmed it right where they said to trim it, and that's as close really as I could get it. So I may elect to fill that in with a piece of plastic later, or just leave it as is and just assume that's part of the design. Haven't figured that out yet. We'll see how it comes out once we're done applying it. But so I'm going to take it out right now, spray the adhesive on, let it tack up. We'll come back in, and I'll show you the application of the plastic wrap. Okay, the rocket tube and the wrap have been sprayed, and I do want to make a correction. I do have both types of adhesive spray. I think I showed the 90. I prefer actually using the Super 77 from 3M, and this is in fact what I just used. So when I went out to spray, I'm like, something didn't seem right. I'm not used to using that green can. But so I went back in the shop and I found my Super 77. This is what I prefer using. So that's what we've got on this project here. So highly recommend this stuff here. Okay, so everything is tacked up. You can test the tack by putting the back of your knuckles on the body. And if your fingers come off dry, but you feel the tack, you're ready to go. So I'm actually supporting the rocket tube in my stand. That way we're not running the body through any grime and losing our tack. So I'm going to rotate it around till we can find those two parallel lines right here. These are the lines we're going to start with. And we're going to lay the wrap on that line, flush with the top, and down at the bottom. And if you need to change anything, do it now before you start wrapping too much. There, perfect. Okay. Okay, I'm going to remove the extra tape that we used to prevent overspray. And let's get this part peeled up as well. Okay. Now I'm just sort of gonna kind of rub around because I don't want to create air bubbles inside anywhere. So we're gently just going to kind of press this as we roll the tube underneath us. Okay, so far so good. Okay, almost done. Almost done with the wrap. Hopefully everything will line right up and we'll be in good alignment here. Okay, almost done. All right. Our alignment came out splendid. You can see the bottom line came right up. We still have that gap, which I alerted to beforehand. Again, I'm going to decide here after the segment how we're going to fill that in, if we're going to fill it in at all. Let me contemplate that one for a little bit. But that went on nicely. I can move the guide out of the way. Okay, nice. We got no air bubbles, no pockets. Perfect seam or flush all around the top. Nice application. All right, so I'm going to work on thinking about that center gap there, and we'll come back and work on the next step. Okay, while the body wrap is still setting up on the tube, this is a good opportunity for us to go ahead and finish up the motor tube now that the forward centering ring is dry. They call for taking your aramid cord, passing it through that notch, which is actually pretty good size, which is good. Sometimes you have to kind of trim the tip of the cord off to make it fit more like a point, but no, that's a nice size notch. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to do a slip knot. They call for just tying a knot, but I'm going to pull this around, wrap it, and pretend like I'm tying a knot, but then I'm going to go back and tie a knot around itself right there, and that is the slip portion of the knot. Okay, so I'm going to cinch that down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run another bead of fillet glue around that, and I'm going to tug and pull the cord into that, which will give us our support for it. So now I'm just going to take my glue, run what looks like a fillet, okay, we're going to pull it tight, okay, and then we're just going to pull that whole cord into the fillet that we created. The knot will be right at the notch. Okay, we're going to pull that down as taut as we can. And take a popsicle stick, and I'm just going to kind of wedge that into the fillet glue. There. All the way around. And then I'm going to take another bead of glue to put over top, and also to lay that tail into so we don't have so much excess floating around. And the knot itself, that's a key thing. You want to make sure that there's no chance of that knot ever coming undone. Okay. Again, snug it down, make sure we're tight. And I'm just going to lay the cord into that glue that we just laid down. I kind of spread it a little bit with the stick. No one's ever going to see this, but it's always good to practice good cleanliness in your builds. It's a great habit to have. So practice it when you can. Okay, so now we're just going to let that dry, set it aside, and that is good to go. Okay, now we can start working on the tail cone. In order to insert the motor mount into the tail cone, we need to remove the bottom and the top caps of the plastic piece here. So I like to use a brand new razor blade, and I just did a kind of a test run to see how thin this was and to start maybe just a guideline, and it actually went through right there. So it's actually very thin and cuts very easily. So at this point, I just like to keep the blade in and kind of push it and guide as we guide it through the groove. Pull it out, slide it. See at that angle right there? And then just kind of rotate the blade as it follows the groove line. It is a little thicker right at that seam. Where you approach that seam, I can feel the resistance grow there a little bit. But once we clear that, yeah, see how much it thinned out once we got past that seam. So pull the blade forward, and then just with your fingers kind of draw it back down into the groove. Again, it's very thin, which is very nice. And it's self-guiding because that groove is great for the blade just to follow along. I've tried to do this type of technique with my X-Acto knife itself, and it's just, there's too much chance for it to rotate and wander. Whereas a straight edge razor, it really only wants to go one way, and that's straight, because it's a straight edge. So, okay, we're almost back to the starting point here. Okay, another ½ inch, and we are through. Beautiful. Nice, clean line. It's actually one of the better lines I've ever cut. Okay, so we'll set that aside. Let's go up to the top portion. See if we can't maybe start a little cut into here and get the same results. Yep, it's in. Okay, it doesn't help the fact that I started right at that seam line. So let's go past the seam line and work where it's going to be a little bit thinner. Yep, just like butter. The key is you've got to have a brand new blade though. This will never work with the dull blade. Sometimes I'm guilty of trying to extend the life span of a blade, you know, just one more project. But usually when you get to that point where you're saying just one more project, you end up messing up that project because the dullness will make the blade wander off on you or make a jagged cut. You know, it never works out the way you intend because of those famous words, just one more time. So something that you want this precise, by all means, just go get you a new blade, and you'll the results will pay dividends. Look how quickly that spins. We're about an inch away from the beginning point again. And there we go. Oh, that was our original cut line. Now we need to make it through this seam. So we got another inch to go here. Yep, those seams, you can definitely feel the resistance of the thickness. There it goes. Beautiful. All right. I will clean this up a little bit with some sandpaper. See if I can find my... Okay, well, oh, here it is right here. Okay, so we're just gonna, we can lay, this is actually 220, or I'm sorry, 120. But we'll just sit here and we can rotate it, and it'll kind of even up all the edges, smooth things out. Okay, and we'll do the same to the top. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. All right. So this is done. I'm going to let the motor mount dry a little bit more, and then we'll bring it in and glue it into the tail cone. Okay, now we're ready to glue the motor mount into the plastic tail cone. And I've already mixed up some 30-minute epoxy. This is going to be, I hope it's enough to not only insert this into this, but then ultimately glue this into the body tube, which I've got sitting and waiting to go. I did pull the shock cord back through the mount. That way it's not in the way as we insert this. I did some dry fitting. I did have to sand the forward centering ring a little bit to fit into the shoulder portion of the tail cone. But the dry fit is good, and we're ready to start applying our epoxy. I'll show you once we get in, but you are to glue this in, push it all the way in until this bottom ring is 1 1/4 inches from the bottom of the tail cone. So I've already marked on this Q-tip here, that little black line you see right there, that's our 1 1/4 inch mark. So I'm going to push it into that point. That's our stopping point. Okay. Also, you might recognize this little cap here. This is the cap that we cut off of our tail cone. It makes a perfect epoxy mixing tray. So don't throw it away just yet. You might have a use for it. Okay, so let's get some epoxy on here. Run a bead of epoxy around the cone. Okay, and then I'll also run a bead of epoxy up in here to glue in the forward centering ring. Looking at it now, I may not have enough glue to glue this into the body tube, but I can just easily mix up some more. Not a problem. I did go with a 30-minute because I don't want to feel rushed in this application. I want to be able to talk to the camera, talk about what I'm doing at the same time, have some leeway to apply the glue. Another thing you want to keep in mind is, see these two features here, these two plastic features that stick out of the tail cone. The C-rings, the fin stabilizer holder tubes, are to be in alignment with those, and we'll check that once we get it in. We can rotate it. So let me work this around, get it in. There we go. Now I'm just gonna push this, make sure we're centered up here. Looks good. Okay, let me check 1.25 inches. Okay, got another maybe 3/16 to go. Okay, about 1/8 of an inch to go. There we go. We are right on the money. All the way around, looks good. Okay, now I'm going to rotate the tube. Actually, it's not that far off. I'm going to rotate it so these tubes are in line with that feature. And yeah, looking at it, we're pretty much right there. Let me maybe just a skosh. That way. I'll be honest with you, I'm really afraid to move it anymore. I think we're right on the money. Sometimes good enough is good enough, and when you strive to make things perfect, that's when you get into problems and make mistakes. So also you can see up in the nose, I hope the lighting can see it, but by pushing the forward ring through the epoxy, it's created its own forward fillet. Very nicely done, actually. That's a beautiful fillet. So I'm very pleased with the way it came out, and everything's aligned pretty good. Again, I don't think I can get it much better than that as far as rotation goes. Let me still make sure we're still at the 1.25. Yep, right on the money. Okay, so let me see how much epoxy I've got left. I'm going to mix up just a tad bit more, and we'll just go ahead and glue this into the body tube. That way everything can be drying at the same time. And once we get this in the body tube, I'll show you the alignment marks that we need to make sure we get the tail cone aligned right with the body tube. I'll show you that here once we get it inserted. Okay, so let me bring the tube around. Let me set that motor mount aside just for a second. Okay, I'm going to run a bead of epoxy just on the inner lip here. Kind of work out what I've got left on my Q-tip. Okay, I think that's all we're going to get out of that. Okay, we'll go to our popsicle stick. Oh, and one other thing I did, I scuffed up the outer tube of the tail cone, of the shoulder, I should say, that's going to go into this portion of the rocket body. So that way the adhesion is better on the epoxy. Epoxy doesn't necessarily like to stick to smooth plastic. You want it roughened up a little bit. Okay. We've got full coverage. Let me just throw a little more epoxy in there for extra security. Okay. Set that aside. Now, the two lines, the parallel lines, these guys right here, those are the ones that we use to align our upper wrap with, if you remember. So now we're going to use those same two lines, and we're going to rotate this. Well, let me get it in first, and then we'll kind of rotate as we go here. Okay, let me bring it around. Okay, there's the seam line. You can barely see it maybe on the camera. I'm not sure if it's visible. It's this seam line here, right here between the two features. And that seam line needs to line up with the bottom of the two parallel lines that we used for our upper wrap reference. Okay, so there, we just rotated in line with that bottom line. That's the orientation we want. So this is 30-minute epoxy. We're gonna let it set up and dry, and then we'll come back and work on the details. Okay, the next thing we're gonna work on is the fins. And as you can see, I've already cut out 3 of the 4 little fins and 1 of the 2 larger fins, as well as this raceway that goes down the side of the rocket body. But I wanted to at least show you how I did these. It's very straightforward and simple, actually. I first took some curved scissors and I cut the curvature off the tip of the fin because that kind of contorted the bottom from being able to flex the way I wanted it to. And then just I left about a millimeter to maybe a 1/16 of an inch border. That gives me a surface that I can glue down to the body itself. Just cut this out. I find that the curved scissors are somewhat more manageable. I'm not quite sure why, but they are. Okay, there we go. And the longer fin actually can use the curved scissors to cut the tips off. However, I will use longer straight scissors around the border. Again, about a 1/16 of an inch or so. That gives me some purchase to glue down onto the rocket body. All right. Okay, so there are our fins. We'll set aside the scrap plastic, and I will tell you, let me show you, actually let me go back and show you what I did. On when I cut out this raceway, I ended up with some pretty long, straight, skinny pieces of plastic, so I was able to take one piece and cut it to size, and I filled in that gap that was on the nose wrap, and I got that in there. At least that's going to fill in that gap somewhat and kind of conceal that missing space there. So that's what I did there. Okay, the next step is we're going to take the balsa sheet that's got the fin supports, which actually will slide into the fins, giving them a little bit more rigidity. Let me just try one here. Let me cut out one of these small pieces. Okay, let's see how this fits in. Okay, they say to glue it on with epoxy. I'm not sure if I want to use epoxy or not, but okay, not bad. Okay, so let me finish cutting the rest of these out. I'll come back once I figure out how I'm going to actually glue these in. I'll probably end up using epoxy. That's what they recommend, but there might be something a little easier. I'll see what I come up with. So come back and I'll show you what I came up with. Okay, now I'm just gluing the balsa supports together that will eventually end up inside of our plastic tunnels. I've already done 3 of the 4 smaller fins, and I'll do one more to show you how I did it. I did 1 of the 2 larger fins, and I'll do 1 to show you how I did that. And now we're actually building the long support that's going to go in this long raceway. I've already connected these three pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. Now I'm just going to add just a drop of thin CA. And just let that wick into the joint. And I'm doing this over a piece of wax paper so it doesn't stick to the bench. Okay, we'll let that wick in. Okay, give it a quick shot of kicker so it'll dry a little quicker. Okay, so that's ready to glue in. I haven't even done a dry run on this one yet because I haven't even glued it together. The instructions basically just say center that as best you can. So I guess we'll just kind of finagle it in. But let me show you how I did the other two. Super simple. It's not like a great secret or anything. I'm just using CA glue. I'm using a little bit of gel type, which is thicker, and also a little bit of thin. But simply put, I'm just setting the support on the bench, laying the fin over top of it, and that's it. Shot of kicker to moisten it so it'll dry quicker, and just adding a drop of the thick CA. And we'll just sort of run a bead along the edge. Just like so. So there's the fourth and final one of those. This one's a little more fun. You get to glue this wedge piece into it. And the nice thing is the plastic is so thin you can actually see through and see where they're actually dropping into. Okay, so now I'm just going to run a thick bead of CA down in the joint. Which will hold it temporarily. And a little drop of thin. It'll run in and wick in nicely. Okay. Just gonna kind of pinch the support from the outside. And we'll just run a little bit of thin that'll fill in this joint here. Okay, that's literally it. Let me give another kick. All right, let that sit and dry. All right, let's glue this thing in here into the raceway. They say it should just be roughly centered between the sides, so that'll be sufficient. It just needs to give a little more strength to it so it doesn't collapse if you squeeze the rocket from the sides. Okay, I'm just going to run a bead down the center. Okay, just kind of a rough guesstimate as to where the center is. All right, so we'll just let that harden. And now I'm going to bring in the body tube, and we're going to make some marks on it, and we'll have it positioned ready for these fins to glue down. Okay, I've already begun gluing the front fins on the top of the rocket body, and I wanted to show you how I do the fourth one. I've done 3 so far, and that's pretty simple. I did make a mark, and I failed to show this on the video, but from the base of the tube up, you need to draw a line at the 16-inch mark, and that's going to be the bottom of the fins. So I've got 1, 2, 3 fins, and they line up on those reference lines that we drew earlier. And I have got 1 more to go. That's fin number 4. So I'll show you what I did. Just simple process of taking some gel or thicker CA, and I'm just going to coat the wood and the perimeter of the plastic fin, just like that. The fin faces with the longer end facing downward. You see that angle is longer, so it's going to face down the length of the tube. And I'm going to lay it right at that 16-inch line on our center line, and get the back or the top of the fin in position as well, and just gently lay it in position and kind of roll it, rock it back and forth to spread the glue, and just let it sit. And there you have it. There's fin number 4. So all 4 of the front fins are done. The next thing will be to do the lower fins and the side raceway. I'm going to let this cure for a little bit longer, and then we'll get right into it. Okay, off camera, I did go ahead and finish up with the fins, gluing all the fins on in the same manner that we did the front fin. Additionally, I did the raceway that goes down the entire side of these, I was going to say fuselage or rocket body. There is a small lip or edge that's surrounding it, and I'm going to go over that with some putty later to create more of a fillet effect. But I'm going to wait probably till after I primer the rocket, just to see where I need to fill it in, where it's deeper or more shallow in some of the gaps. So, but before we do any of that, we do need to build up our standoffs for our launch lugs, and that comes in that balsa sheet that we saw earlier. So let me go ahead and cut these out. It takes 2 of them per launch lug. Okay, I'll do 1 on camera and 1 off. These little balsa blocks here, you just basically, we're just going to glue them together, and I'll do a little sanding after I glue it. Let me just take some super glue. Okay. Now I'll just take a little bit of sandpaper and just sand all 4 sides of this. Okay, and we have a launch lug here. Now the instructions show gluing the standoffs onto the rocket first. However, I'm actually going to glue the standoffs onto the launch lug first. That way I can go ahead and sort of fill it here a lot easier than trying to get up and underneath it if it's already mounted on the tube. So I'm going to take my glue once again. We can use CA for this. And you want to make sure it's as straight as you possibly can get it. We're going to hold that on for a second. Okay, that looks good. And then we can go ahead and take our quick and thick glue. Get a paper towel ready to go. And we're just going to build up our fillet. Right there. And we'll do the same to the other side. All right. Okay, we're going to let that harden before we do anything else to it. Off camera, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to build up the other launch lug. And then when they're dry, we'll come back and we'll glue them onto the rocket body. Okay, as you can see, the rocket has been primered. I'll tell you what I did. First, I did put one coat of gray primer down, and then I went over any little areas. For example, down here at this seam, it's still a little rough, but it hasn't been wet sanded yet. But I kind of filled in some of the seams. I did some work around this raceway. Again, it'll smooth out once I get it wet sanded. But then after I dry sanded it, I did put another coat of gray primer down. And that's going to give me a base coat so I won't go all the way through into the cardboard when I wet sand. Because when you wet sand, and if you touch the cardboard, it's going to fizz up on you and it's going to be awful. So what I do is before I wet sand, I'm going to go over this with another coat of primer, but it's going to be white primer. I'm going to wet sand the white primer, and once I begin to see gray peeking through, that's my limit. That's when I know I need to stop before I hit cardboard. So again, the whole rocket has been gray primered. I'm going to take it out, hit it with white primer, and then do my wet sand, and then she'll be ready for the base coat of white. So that's where we're at right now. Just a little fine tuning and touch up, but it's coming along nicely. So next time you see this, it will be covered in white. I'm not sure if I'll show you the primer before the paint coat, but I also will be doing the nose cone as well. I'll just be painting the primer. Like for example, right there you can see there's a little bit of gap. So I'm going to get that filled in and then lay down my final coat of the primer before the base. So yeah, just some touch up, some fine tuning, but we'll clean her up and she'll look good as new. Okay, just to give you guys an update, and first of all, I want to announce that since the last segment you saw, I have come down with the flu. So you can probably hear it in my voice. It's I actually had to take a couple of days off from building, but we're back at the bench again. I'm starting to get my voice back a little bit, so I can proceed here. But I want to show you what I've done most recently. I have applied the paint to the body tube, and that is currently drying. I'll show it to you when it's cured, and I can bring it back out of the booth. But in the time being, there are some other things we can do, and that is working on the fins that will be mounted at the base. Now, what I like to do is to make painting the fins a little bit easier and giving them a smoother surface to paint. Instead of sanding and filling and sanding and filling and sanding and filling, I just take some 0.0 polystyrene sheets, and using some 3M 77 contact adhesive, I lay the fins down on these sheets. And I've already done one side here, you can see. And
And then we can just take our X-Acto knife and cut this out. That's what I want to show you here. Just using the fin itself as our cutting guide. Should be able to snap that right off. There we go. And here, let me just cut one out completely, and I'll do the rest off camera, but just to give you an idea of what we're doing. There we go. Now that is one perfectly smooth, contoured surface that we can paint once everything's glued up. I do have the fins, the tubes for the fins, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to insert these up into the tube and get a distance measurement so I can mask one end off and then just paint the rest after I get the fins glued on, because I don't want to paint the surface that's going to slide up into the tube. That may cause an issue as far as pulling it out, and it just make things a little bit difficult. So I'm going to do the rest of these, cut these out, and then I'm going to go back outside and do the other side, which is simply spraying the surface and then spraying the plastic, waiting a few minutes, and then just applying it down. And I'll cut them out, and when these are all done, we'll come back in and glue them up to the tubes. Okay, the fins are done as far as covering both sides with the polystyrene sheets. After I trimmed them out of the plastic, I did go over them with some sandpaper just to even up the sides, ensuring that there's no overlap or overhang, because that would look funny under the paint. But everything is cleaned up and ready to go. I took the body tubes and I marked 2 lines according to the fin guide, right where they're going to line up. I made 2 marks, and I used my body tube marking guide and drew some straight lines out. I have since roughened them up a little bit to accept the glue better. And I apologize for my voice, guys, trust me. It might be hard for you to hear, but it's harder for me to speak, so, but we'll just deal with it. So next thing we're gonna do is actually glue them on. I'm gonna take some Tite Bond Quick and Thick, and I'm just going to take a thin bead of glue down the root, and I'm gonna spread it with my finger. Just like that. Take a paper towel, clean off my finger. And I'm going to lay this right on that line that I used as a reference line. Okay, we're going to roll it a little bit to spread the glue, and then we're going to remove it. Okay, I'm going to set that fin aside to dry, and we're going to move on to our second fin. Okay. Get the tube and we'll line it up on the next line. Okay. We'll roll it to spread it a little bit. Okay. Now it should have tacked up enough for gluing the other side on permanently. So I'm just going to lay this down on our alignment guide, which, by the way, I photocopied from the instruction book. And I'm just going to slide it into position, and this should give us our 90-degree angle. That looks good. And we'll take our other one, which should have tacked up by now as well. And we'll go ahead and lay it in position. There, let me see if I can put that directly into the camera. You can see the two 90-degree angles. Whoops. That one quite hadn't tacked up yet enough, apparently. So let me rotate it back into position. Okay, we're gonna let that sit and harden up a little bit before I remove it, and then we'll do the other one. I'll do the other one off camera. It's the same technique, and we'll get those done. And once they're dry and cured, I'm gonna come back and put fillets in. I'm not sure if I'll film that or not. You see me do fillets before, but I'm just gonna use my quick and thick glue and run a bead of fillet down the sides. And then we'll get these inserted into the body tube itself and mark off where we need to mask off so we don't paint the upper portion of the fin. So, all right, we'll be right back. Okay, while the fins are drying on the fin tubes, I wanted to show you what I'm doing to prepare the display engine mount. As you can see, this is the base piece that plugs into the bottom of the engine, or the body tube. And what I've simply done is taken a bunch of Q-tips, cut them in half, and then you simply insert them into the holes, kind of pull them in. And what that's going to do is going to give us a little bit of perimeter around the plastic that's not going to be painted. And that's going to make the surface easier to glue once we get the engine nozzles themselves. It gives them basically some purchase power into the plastic base. So that's what I've done to seal up those holes and give us a little bit of a perimeter to avoid getting paint in the holes. So I'm going to take this out, paint it white, and then we're going to airbrush these, kind of a gunmetal silverish color, and then we'll glue those. I'll try to film the painting of these. I think I can do this airbrushing on camera. So we'll be back after this dries, and we'll get these painted up as well. Okay, now we're going to spray paint the engine nozzles, and what I did was I took a can of Rust-Oleum metallic silver, and I simply sprayed, I guess it's called decanting. I've never done it before, but it appears to work. You spray the can into a cup, and then once it gases off, then you can pour this into your airbrush, and that's what I've done. I've got my airbrush with the paint in it, and I've got my nozzles. Now what I did was I just temporarily tack glued a toothpick to the nozzle, so it'll give me a handle. But yeah, we just do our airbrush. Beautiful. I think I like this idea. Let me get the inside. Okay, that's one nozzle done. I've got, what, 6 more to go. And once they're all done, I'll come back and we'll glue these onto the base plate. Okay, the nozzles are all dry, and it's time to glue them into the base plate or firewall for display. One thing I will tell you, I did paint it with the gloss white earlier, and it's since dried. You can kind of see the marks around the holes where the Q-tips protected some of the plastic from being painted over, which was what we wanted. I'm going to use the engine retainer just as a holder right now, because when you plug the nozzles in, the little stub goes beyond the hole. So if I were to put it directly on the table, it would wobble because it's not sitting off of something. So we're going to temporarily glue them in like this. Once this is dry, then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to use some plastic cement to further bond the plastic at each of the 7 joints. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do the 7 nozzles first. Take some CA. And just put a little dab. Now, I'm not going to use much. And, you know, it's not like we're flying this with these on there anyway, so it doesn't have to withstand a lot of forces. Okay, that's one. Snap the toothpick off.
Okay, that's 2. That's 3. And finally, number 7. There you have it. There is the completed display nozzle set. And technically now we can go ahead and flip this over and press everything flat down onto the, I'm just going to protect the nozzles by placing it on a paper towel. And then we can just take some cement and just put a little dab on each one. There we have it. Okay, we'll just let that set up for a bit, and that's complete. Okay, a lot's happened since the last segment. You remember we just finished installing our engine nozzles into our display engine stand. I think this just came out beautiful. So we'll set that aside. But I do want to show you the fins. We built the fins up, and now they have been painted. Big old rocket's taking up all my view. But here's one of them. I've got 2 of them identical. Okay, just painted in gloss black. I did not bother filling in the spiral tubes on this, because this is not part of the scale piece anyway. This is for flight purposes. I did mask off the upper portion that slides into the support tube that's going to be up in the rocket tube itself. So, and I think they're a little loose. Before flight, we'll obviously have to maybe wrap some masking tape around this and make it a little more secure. But want to show you the fins and tell me that that metallic bronze color is not just one stunning look. It's got almost a gold tint to it, but it's just a stunning color. And I'm still battling this cold, so I apologize for my voice. But now it's time to do our decals. This is the moment where the rocket goes from looking like a rocket to really looking like a rocket. So let me set everything aside. First thing I'm going to actually just kind of start at the bottom and work my way up. So we've got this blue strip here that's going to attach just above the tail cone, between the fins, on what we'll call the front of the rocket. If I say the back of the rocket, I'm referring to the backside, which has the launch lugs and the raceway. But we're going to be setting all this up on the front. So let me go ahead and put these decals in the water. Get that soaking. Like so, we'll just start at the bottom and work our way up. The next one up will be the Blue Origin decal, followed by the American flag, and then the New Glenn. Always have paper towels ready to go. I always have a Q-tip as well, because sometimes you want to roll the air bubbles and wrinkles out of the decal. Let's see if it's broken free yet.
Yep, okay, we're all set here. So I'm just gonna actually start maybe down in this corner. And just, let's see, peel it back and let it fall into place. And we're just going to remove that little white gap right there. Bring it right up to the gold. Just fine tuning it, little bump here, little bump there. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, let me get the paper towel, press down gently, trying to remove as much water and moisture out of it as possible. Okay, now we'll get our Q-tip and we'll just do some fine tuning. That looks really sharp. Okay, that looks good. Let me get ready, the next decal ready to go, and we'll start our way up the tube. Okay, next up will be the Blue Origin decal. Now, what I've gained by looking at the manual and the picture on the box, let me see if I can, I don't know if this is going to even fit. This is the box here, but you can see the decal for the Blue Origin. What I gather is the letter I pretty much matches right up with the tip of the fin. So if you draw a line down from the fin tip, you get the letter I. So that gives us a positioning. So that's where we're going to set this on the rocket, just visually. Okay, we'll center it and slide the back off. Okay. Okay, I got the eye right at the tip of the fin. Let me sight down the center of the rocket. We want it parallel to the tube. That looks perfect right there. Okay, we're going to call that good. So let me get my towel, gently dab it. Just got to be careful not to put too much pressure, because if you do, you'll actually slide the decal. It'll move, and then you're going to have to start over. And you can progressively apply more pressure because it starts to hold its own and stick better. There we go. Okay, that looks really, really good. All right, let me get the next decal ready and we'll be right back. Okay, we'll go ahead and do two decals in this one section. The American flag and the New Glenn. The flag is going to be okay, the next step is actually going to be doing two decals. I'll do them at the same time because I want to get them centered within each other. By that I mean the New Glenn needs to be centered between the bronze strip here and the flag needs to be centered between the Blue Origin and the New Glenn. So we're just kind of work them simultaneously and get them in position. So let me go ahead and get the flag started. That way we can set it down in the middle, and then we can do the New Glenn between those two. So I gotta say the quality of these decals are, you know, typical Estes quality, but just they lay down so smooth and clean. The colors are just bright and very, very stunning. So, especially with this white backdrop, very, very pretty. Okay, let's lay the flag down. Okay, let me move it into position. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna go with that. Okay. Probably going to ruin it by trying to make it so precise, but there. I just wanted to slide it up just a little bit while we still can. Okay, looks good. Now we'll get the new Glen going in the water. And again, we're just going to lay it right in between here. And when it gets time to we get to the top, a little bit different technique, and I want to show you what I did and how I went about doing it. And I'll give you a sneak peek. It's the feather that wraps around the plastic, the vacuum formed wraps up near the top. That was kind of a tricky thing to figure out, but I think you'll like our solution. Okay, I think the decal curled under just a little bit here. Let me work that out. There we go. Okay. Whew. That's always a scary thing when they curl on you. You don't have much time to work with it, but you can save it. Okay, it's actually easy. Let me slide the rocket a little bit further. There's a fin right here that you can use as your alignment guide to get centered, and we're pretty much right on it. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, that looks really good. Okay, excellent. Now, let me slip this rocket further to the left. And I gotta move stuff. So the decal that goes up here on the wrap is unique because it gets split by this raceway going down the center. And the picture on the box shows that there is no decal on the raceway. So at some point, you've got to cut the decal. And then you've got to cut at least a quarter to maybe 3/16 of an inch or 5/16 of an inch wide gap in the decal, which is where that raceway goes. So what I did was I took my feather and I split it in half. And then I cut out, like I said, about a 1/4 inch gap right between the two. And they're going to go just like that. Okay, and fortunately, we've got these little wraps that we can use as counting pieces, so we can count to get our proper position. So let me go ahead. I gotta move things around a little bit. The rocket's sticking out this way off my bench, and it's about ready to knock things over. So let me clear this up. We'll be right back. Okay, we're all set to apply the feather decal. Now, one thing I did off camera was I counted how many ridges it was that the very most bottom portion of the gray would line up, and it came out to be on the 21st little rib. So I just laid down a piece of tape and I made a mark at the 21st rib. So that gives me a point as to where I'm going to lay this down in position. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get this soaking. But I want to also point out to you, because of those ridges, I want the decal to conform to each of those slopes. So to do so, we're going to add a little bit of micro set. This solution applied before we lay the decal down, and then afterwards we'll apply some micro sol, and that'll help it conform even better. But this will give it a good base. And with this, it will help. Again, it'll soften the decal to where it will actually fit better into those little grooves. So spread that around. Okay, decal should be good to go. Yes. Okay, just going to line this up, tuck it into the corner. Nice. Okay. Let's work it up onto that ridge that we were counting, the 21st ridge. Perfect. Okay. Okay, gotta work out any moisture from the water. I'm not concerned about the microsol, but I am concerned about the water. I'm actually just gonna draw the Q-tip through each ridge. Okay, nice. That worked out quite well. Okay, well, I'm going to do the same to the other side, but while I do, we can go ahead and get some micro sol going on this first decal, just to get things working. It's one of those things, you just let it sit for an hour or so and you come back and it'll just have fit right into those grooves beautifully. Okay, so that wraps that one up. Now we'll go back and do the other side. Let's get that decal going. We can start with the micro set. Not a big fan of the vinegary odor that this puts out, but as long as it does what it's supposed to do, I'll overlook that. Okay, now according to the picture on the box, the bottom gray will fit right into the same ridge that the bottom gray was on this side. So we'll go there. Okay. Okay. Get my towel. I would like to point out to you, if you remember when we were building it, we came up with this little gap. You can see that gap in the building of the wrap. And I contacted Estes about that. And this was a pre-production sample. And they said that production team was looking at it and they were going to make the corrections before the actual customer versions were produced. So hopefully subsequent kits do not have that trouble. So I'm very pleased that Estes was willing to take action on that and make things right. Okay, just like before, I'm gonna draw out these ridges. Tell you, when the decals conform into those ridges, it really makes a good looking rocket into an excellent, great looking rocket. And see, that micro set is what's allowing us to be able to conform it to those ridges without gaining wrinkles or really deforming the decal. Sorry, I was off camera there. I didn't realize that. Okay, let me pull out some of these wrinkles, and I'm going to call this one done. And then I'll apply some microsol. Okay. Looks good. Let's apply this. Not sure if you can see, it's already starting to take effect. Now the thing about microsol is, as it's working, it starts to create a crinkle and wrinkle effect. That'll make you panic. Trust the process. Don't panic when you see that. Those crinkles and wrinkles will work themselves out naturally. So just be patient and let it fix itself. Don't panic. Okay, so that's going to wrap up the body portion. I do have, oh, you know what, guys? I totally forgot something. We have blue stripes that go on the bottom of the rocket back. Let me bring this up here. On the backside. I'm going to do that off camera only because right now I don't want to lay this rocket on its face and distort any of these decals while they're still drying. So I will do that off camera, but you will see it in the final reveal at the end. So, but we do have our nose cone to do, so let me set this aside, bring in the nose cone, and we'll do some wraps on that. Okay, the nose cone decals, pretty simple. You've got two ridgeways that run up the length of the nose cone at 180 degrees from one another. And we've got these two strips of decals with black dots. They're just going to wrap right around the base, and each strip is going to be between those two raceways. So I've got one soaking. I can drop the second one in and pull out the first, and we'll get it started. After what we've done, this is a pretty straightforward and simple decal considering what we've already done. Okay, kind of get these centered between the two sides. Just eyeballing it back and forth, back and forth. Okay, let me soak up some of the water. Okay, now we'll fine tune it and get it in its finished position. The thing about long, skinny decals is they tend to warp a little bit and kind of serpentine on you like a snake. So you gotta just kind of work with that. There, that looks really good. Okay, I'll just grab a dry Q-tip. Soak up any excess. Okay, now we'll get this off the back end and do the other side. Okay, looks good. Okay. I can't imagine if somebody gets the kit and decides to cut each little circle out individually, what a nightmare that would turn into. So do yourself a favor and keep it as one strip. Okay. That one is complete. Okay, we're gonna let that dry, and we're pretty much done. One other thing I did do off camera was I did glue the engine retainer cap onto the base, but at the end when we do our final close up, I still have to do the shock cord, mount it, and when I do that, I can show you the base, and I'll show you how we insert the fins up into there as well. So, all right, gonna let the decals dry, and we'll come back and finish the project up completely. See you in a bit. Okay, this will be the last segment in the building of the New Glenn rocket. What I need to do is they give you 8 squares of clay, and they want all 8 put up into the nose cone. I'll just put 1 square up because you need to watch for you to watch me. I have to do this 8 times. But the easiest way to do it is to go ahead and take a square. Again, you're going to do this 8 times. Just take that square, try to roll it up into a ball. Just like you played with Play-Doh as a kid. And then you had to remember the snakes you used to make. We're going to do the same thing. Let me set that over so it doesn't fall. And the hole that these are going to go up into the nose cone is just a little over 1/4 of an inch. So if we get this snake down to 1/4 of an inch, it should be able to fit easy. So there we go. We'll just drop it straight in. All right, and then I just take a 1/4-inch wooden dowel and just kind of jam it up into the nose. And I'll do that 8 times. We'll get it nicely compacted. Usually what I do after that is I'll put a little bit of glue. I'll drop some glue in there to seal around the perimeter just to keep the nose weight from falling out. The glue kind of helps hold that. So that's that. I'll do the other 7 off camera. But we want to take our elastic shock cord that we haven't touched since our opening video of the inventory. And we're just going to thread it through here. Let's tie a double knot. Just like that. And then we'll take our scissors, and I'm just going to cut this tail off a little bit. And take some wood glue and massage it into the knot. And a little bit on the ends there to keep them from fraying. Okay, just kind of massage that glue into the knot. Okay, paper towel, clean off my fingers, and literally the last step is to take the Kevlar cord that was in the body tube, and I'm just going to tie off a loop at the end. Just like that. And similarly, I will embed a little bit of wood glue. Now there's some debate as to what glue to use. A lot of people like to use super glue. And I'm not opposed to that, other than the fact that I have seen Kevlar under the explosion discharge of a motor crack and break in half at the point where super glue has been used, because super glue can make Kevlar brittle and it can snap at that point. So wood glue is a little more, has more finesse to it, and it won't crack like super glue will. Then I'm going to take my elastic and we're just going to join right here at this loop. I'm going to tie another double knot. This elastic is about the beefiest and thickest elastic I've ever seen in an Estes kit, which is good. You don't, after this much work, you definitely don't want a separation from the rocket body and its parachute. You want to preserve it as best you can. All right, let's snip off a little bit of that tail as well. Again, we'll work some glue into it. Just sort of massage it in. Okay. So that concludes the building of the Blue Origin New Glenn from Estes. This has been a wonderful kit to build. Absolutely beautiful. A few hiccups along the way, but I think those can be remedied over time. But overall, wonderful kit. I will continue putting the rest of the clay up in the nose. I'll do a little photo montage at the end of the video here so you can see what it looks like all built up on display on its stand. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed building it and eventually flying it. So until the next video, everybody, thanks for watching. God bless, and we will see you at the launch pad.